The emergency lights bathed the council chamber in deep red. Around the massive circular table, representatives from 23 star systems sat in tense silence. They had gathered because of something impossible, something that made even the oldest species nervous. High Chancellor Rikis of the Krovar Empire tapped his clawed hand against the stone table. His scales, usually bright green, had turned a worried gray. He looked at the holographic display floating above them. It showed a single massive object moving through space. 3 cycles, Rikis said, his voice like grinding rocks. For 3 cycles, this thing has been coming closer. And still, we know nothing about it. Ambassador Thesha from the collective closed her 3 eyes and reached out with her mind. She tried to touch the consciousness of whatever piloted that ship, but there was only static. Painful, burning static that made her head hurt. She pulled back quickly. "I cannot read it," she whispered. "There is something wrong. Something that blocks all telepathic contact." Commander Zek of the Velkrin hegemony stood up. His insect-like body clicked as he moved. "Then we send ships. We send weapons. We do not wait for unknown threats to reach our territory." "But we do not know if it is a threat," another delegate said. Zek's mandibles clicked in anger. "Anything that large is a threat. The energy readings alone could power an entire planet for a year, and it comes from quarantine space." The room fell silent at those words. Quarantine space, the region around Sol System, the place where humans lived, or had lived. Most species believed the humans had destroyed themselves 50 years ago. After the incident, no one spoke about the incident. It was forbidden, but everyone remembered. The human colony ship that had been destroyed, the accusations, the fighting, the decision to lock humanity behind a barrier and let them die alone. "Humans are gone," Riki said firmly. "Their world was primitive. They could not even leave their own system without our help. This cannot be them." Thesha was not so sure. She had been there 50 years ago. She had seen the look in human eyes when the barrier went up. It was not defeat. It was something else. Something that made her nervous even now. "We should prepare anyway," she said softly. The council argued for another hour. They sent scout ships. They positioned their fleets. They tried to hail the approaching vessel on every known frequency, but there was no response. Only silence, and that massive ship growing larger on their sensors with each passing hour. Then it arrived. The ship dropped out of jump space at the edge of council territory. Every warning system in 3 sectors screamed at once. Energy readings spiked so high that several monitoring stations simply shut down to protect themselves. The vessel was enormous, 40 kilometers from front to back. Its hull was dark gray, covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them too long. It had no visible weapons, no obvious engines. It simply existed in space like a sleeping giant. On the bridge of the council flagship, officers stared at their screens in shock. "That is impossible," one of them whispered. "Nothing that large should be able to jump." The energy requirements alone, a body had jumped, and now it drifted there, silent and dark. Waiting, Commander Zek ordered his battle group forward. 20 Velkrin warships, the pride of the hegemony, moved to intercept. They were prepared for anything, or so they thought. As the Velkrin ships approached within weapons range, something changed. The massive vessel suddenly came alive. Lights flickered along its hull in patterns that hurt to watch. Energy readings exploded off the charts. Every sensor, every scanner, every piece of monitoring equipment for 3 systems focused on that single ship. Then it spoke. The transmission came in 10,000 languages at once. Every species heard it in their own tongue. Every computer translated it perfectly. The message was simple and clear. "Do not approach. This is your only warning." The voice was human, female.com, but underneath that calmness was something else, something hard, something that had seen terrible things and survived. Commander Zek hesitated. His warriors had never retreated from a warning, but something about that voice made his instincts scream danger. High Chancellor Rikis, watching from the council chamber, made a decision. Identify yourselves. By order of the Galactic Council, you will stand down and prepare to be boarded. There was a long pause. Then the human voice spoke again. We are the UNE's Indomitable, United Nations of Earth ship. We come with a warning. But first, you need to understand what we became while you left us to die. The ship's name appeared on every screen. UNES Indomitable. Letters that glowed with an inner light. And below it, a symbol. A blue and green planet. Earth that Ambassador Thesha felt her blood run cold. The humans had not died. They had survived. And they had built this. What do they want? Rikis demanded. The human ship drifted in space, silent once more. But now, every species in the council understood one simple truth. The humans had returned. And they had returned, changed, in the observation deck of the Indomitable. Captain Elena Voss watched the alien ships through the viewport. Her crew stood ready at their stations. They had traveled so far, fought so hard, and now came the difficult part, talking to the species that had abandoned them. She took a deep breath and opened the channel again. "Okay, we came to warn you," she said. "Something is coming. The thing that killed our colony ship 50 years ago. The thing you blamed us for. It is real. And it is hunting all of us now." The universe held its breath and waited for the council's response. Commander Zek did not like being told what to do, especially not by humans. He had read the reports from 50 years ago. Humans were weak, divided, violent, and primitive. They could not possibly threaten the Velcran hegemony. "All ships, advance," he ordered. "Weapons, hot. If they resist, disable them, okay?" His battle group moved forward in perfect formation. 20 warships against 1. The odds were clear. Or so Zek thought. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Elena Voss watched the approaching ships. She felt tired, so very tired. Her crew had been fighting for 5 decades. They had lost so much, and now they had to prove themselves to species that had left them to die. "Ma'am, Velcran ships are still advancing," her tactical officer reported. "They are not responding to our warning." Lena closed her eyes for a moment. She had hoped it would not come to this. But humanity had learned long ago that some species only respected strength. "Fire Solution Alpha," she said quietly. "Target the empty space between their formation and our position. Show them what we built." The Indomitable's main weapon charged. It was not a laser. It was not a plasma cannon. It was something else. Something that humanity had created in their desperate isolation. They called it the resonance cannon. A beam of white light shot from the Indomitable. But it did not travel toward the Velcran ships. Instead, it hit a point in empty space exactly 5 kilometers ahead of the battle group, and space died. There was no explosion, no fire, no debris. A perfect sphere of nothing simply appeared, 10 kilometers wide. Everything inside that sphere ceased to exist, not destroyed, not vaporized, simply removed from reality. The Velcran ships stopped immediately. On his bridge, Commander Zek stared at his screens in disbelief. His sensors could not explain what had happened. One moment, there was space. The next moment, there was a hole, a void. His scientists were screaming about impossible readings. "What was that?" One of his officers whispered. Alina opened the channel again. Her voice was still calm. "That was a warning shot. We do not want to fight you. We came to help, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Commander Zek had fought in 100 battles. He had conquered 6 star systems. He knew when he was outmatched. "All ships, hold position," he ordered. His mandibles clicked in frustration, but he was not a fool. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Half the delegates were shouting. The other half sat in stunned silence. High Chancellor Freakies demanded answers that no one could give. "How is this possible?" he roared. "Humans were barely spacefaring when we left them." Ambassador Desha stood slowly. Her mind was racing. She reached out gently, carefully, toward the human ship. The static was still there, but now she could feel something beneath it. Determination, sadness, and an iron will that refused to break. "We underestimated them," she said softly. "They did what any cornered species would do. They evolved. They adapted. They survived." Elena finally allowed herself to sit down. Her second-in-command, Commander Marcus Chen, stood beside her chair. "Do you think they will listen now?" he asked. "They will listen," Elena said. "Fear is a universal language." She pulled up the files on her personal screen. 50 years of research. 50 years of war. 50 years of humanity fighting alone against an enemy that no one else believed existed. "Send them the data package," she ordered. "Everything. Let them see what we faced." The transmission began. Across the council networks, the story of humanity's isolation began to play. It had started with the colony ship Horizon. 5,000 humans seeking a new world. They had jumped to a system outside council space, a system that was supposed to be empty, but it was not empty. The architects had been there, waiting, hunting. The Horizon was destroyed in seconds, but before it died, it sent a final message, a warning, and a strange geometric pattern that had been burned into their hull. When the council investigated, they found no evidence, no enemy, just debris in that strange pattern. They blamed human error, human weapons, human violence, and they sealed Earth behind a barrier to contain what they thought was a dangerous species. But humanity knew the truth. Something had killed their people, something real, and it was still out there, so they prepared. They united like never before. Every nation, every person, one single goal: survive. They poured everything into research. They studied the pattern the Horizon had sent. They built weapons that could fight things that should not exist. They developed the resonance drive by accident, trying to break through the barrier. Instead, they created something that could break reality itself. The Indomitable was humanity's masterpiece. 40 kilometers of defiance. It carried 200,000 crew, members, scientists, soldiers, families, everyone who volunteered to crew the ship. That would either save humanity or die trying. They had been fighting the architects for 20 years before they finally broke through the barrier. 20 years of desperate battles. 20 years of learning how to kill things that did not follow the rules of physics. And now they had come to warn the council, because the architects were no longer satisfied with hunting humans. They were expanding, and the council's territory was next. As the data package finished playing, the council chamber was silent. The delegates stared at the images of architect ships, geometric impossibilities that hurt to look at, vessels that could phase through solid matter, weapons that corrupted technology itself. High Chancellor Vrikis felt something he had not felt in centuries. "Fear. This cannot be real," he said, but his voice was weak. Then the alarms began. Not on one system, not on one planet, on 17 different worlds, all at the same time. The reports came flooding in. Deshan trade hubs going dark, Velcrin fortresses losing contact, Krovar mining colonies simply vanishing. And in every case, the same thing appeared. A geometric pattern, the same pattern humanity had been fighting for 50 years. Ambassador Desha stood up slowly. She looked at the holographic display, showing the Indomitable, the human ship that everyone had feared, the ship that had come to warn them. "They were telling the truth," she whispered. And now the enemy is here. Commander Zek received reports from his hegemony. 3 fortresses gone, 7 ships missing, all within the last hour. His warriors were dying, and he did not even know what was killing them. He opened a channel to the indomitable. Captain Voss, we need to talk. Lena allowed herself a small, sad smile. Yes, we do. The neutral station hung in space between territories. It belonged to no single species. Here, the council met with Captain Elena Voss and her command crew. The mood was tense, angry, afraid. High Chancellor Rikis slammed his clawed hand on the table. You brought them here. You led these architects to our space. Elena remained calm. She had expected this reaction. Beside her, Commander Chen tensed, but she held up a hand to stop him from speaking. No, Elena said simply. They were already coming. They have been coming for a long time. We just got here first to warn you. Ambassador Desha studied the human captain carefully. Elena Voss was younger than Desha had expected, maybe 40 years old by human standards. But her eyes were much older, eyes that had seen too much death. Tell us everything, Desha said gently, from the beginning. What are the architects? Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment she had prepared for. She activated a holographic display. The image showed a vast, dark region of space beyond the galaxy's edge. We do not know where they came from originally, Elena began, but we know what they are. They are machines, ancient machines, maybe millions of years old. And they have one purpose, to correct what they see as errors in the universe. What errors? Commander Zek asked. His mandibles clicked nervously. Life, Elena said. Organic life. They see us as mistakes, things that should not exist. They have been sleeping in dark space for millennia, but something woke them up. The hologram changed. It showed the Horizon colony ship. Then it showed the moment of its destruction. A geometric ship appeared from nowhere. The Horizon fired weapons. The weapons passed right through the enemy ship as if it was not there. Then the architect ship fired back. The colony ship simply stopped existing. We studied the wreckage for years, Elena continued. We found that pattern burned into the metal. It is not just a mark. It is a virus, a corruption code. It spreads through any technology it touches, slowly turning machines against their makers. She pulled up more images. Computers going haywire. Ships turning on their own crews. Defense systems attacking the planets they were meant to protect. We lost billions learning how to fight them, Elena said quietly. We had to rebuild all our technology. Make it simple. Make it analog. Remove anything the corruption could spread through. It set us back centuries in some ways, but it kept us alive. A delegate from a smaller species stood up. His voice was shaking. But why? Why did they do this? We captured one once, Commander Chen said, speaking for the first time. It took 50 ships and 10,000 lives. We tried to communicate with it. We tried everything, but it just kept repeating the same message over and over. Organic error detected. Initiating correction. That is all they say. That is all they know. The room fell silent. Then High Chancellor Riki spoke again. His voice was softer now, less angry. How many humans survived these battles? Elena met his eyes. When the barrier went up, Earth had 8 billion people. Today, we have 3 billion. The rest died fighting, or died when corrupted technology turned on them. Every single person on the Indomitable has lost someone to the architects. Most of us lost everyone. Ambassador Deshaya felt tears on her face. She could feel the grief rolling off the human crew like waves. So much pain, so much loss, and yet they stood here, still fighting, still trying to save others. I am sorry, she whispered. We should have believed you. We should have helped. Elena nodded slowly. Yes, you should have. But we do not have time for blame now, because the architects are here, in your territory, and they will not stop until everything organic is dead. As if to prove her point, another alarm sounded. This time it was a Theshan colony world. 2 million people. The reports were chaotic, confused. Then they stopped. The planet went silent. Commander Zek stood up abruptly. We need to evacuate. Pull back our fleets. Protect our core worlds. No, Alina said firmly. That is what we tried at first. It does not work. They are faster than you. They can appear anywhere. The only way to survive is to fight together. You want us to trust you? Freaky said. To follow your lead. Alina shook her head. I want you to trust yourselves. You have resources we do not have. Millions of ships. Billions of warriors. Technology we never dreamed of. We have something you do not have. Experience, knowledge. We know how to hurt them. She changed the hologram again. This time it showed the resonance weapons. The technology that could actually damage architect ships. We will share everything, Elena said. Every weapon design. Every tactic we learned. Every piece of research we have. But you need to act now, because the architects do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They correct errors, and they see all of us as errors. The delegates looked at each other. Species that had been enemies for centuries, rivals for territory and resources, now being asked to work together, to trust each other, to trust the humans they had abandoned. Ambassador Desha was the first to stand. She placed her hand over her hearts in the Thesan gesture of binding oath. The collective stands with humanity, she said clearly. We will fight together. There was a long pause. Then Commander Zek stood as well. His pride hurt, but he was not stupid enough to face this threat alone. The hegemony will honor this alliance, he said. For now, slowly, other delegates stood. Not all of them. Some refused. Some walked out. But enough remained. Enough to make a difference. High Chancellor Vrikis was the last to stand. He looked at Alina with his ancient eyes. You said you brought them here, Captain. Why? Why lead them to us if you knew what they would do? Alina met his gaze without flinching. Because the indomitable is bait. Our resonance drive emits a signature the architects cannot ignore. They will come for us. They always come for us. And we realize something. If we are going to die, we are going to take them with us. But we cannot do it alone. We needed your resources, your ships, your warriors. She leaned forward, her voice hard as steel. We brought them here because this is where we make our stand. All of us, together, or we die separately. Your choice. Freaky stared at her for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. A deep, rumbling sound. You humans are insane, he said. But there was respect in his voice now. Completely insane. Very well, we will help you. We will fight your war. Because you are right. It is our war now too. Lena allowed herself a small smile. Good, because they are coming. Our sensors detect 30 architect vessels entering your territory. Maybe more. And they are heading straight for the largest population centers. The council chamber erupted in activity. Orders were given. Fleets were mobilized. The greatest alliance the galaxy had ever seen began to form. Not through friendship or peace, but through necessity, through survival. As the delegates rushed to prepare their forces, Ambassador Thasha approached Alina quietly. Do we have a chance? She asked. Alina looked at her honestly. I do not know. We never fought this many at once. But I know this. Humans are very good at surviving impossible odds. And now you are going to learn how we do it. The combined fleet gathered in the Epsilon sector. Thousands of ships from dozens of species. Crovart dreadnoughts hung alongside Dessen carriers. Velcrin battle groups formed up next to human destroyers. It was the largest military force ever assembled. And it might not be enough. Captain Alina Voss stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the fleet organize. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, worked frantically at her console. "Ma'am, the Krovar keep breaking formation. They do not understand our tactics," Sarah reported. Alina opened a channel. "Chancellor Rikis, your ships need to maintain loose formation. Tight groups make easy targets for architect weapons." "My fleet has fought for 1,000 years, human," Rikis replied. But his ships adjusted anyway. He had learned to trust these strange allies. Commander Zek's voice came through next. "Human captain, my scouts report the architects are 3 hours out. They are not hiding. They do not care that we see them coming." "They never do," Alina said. "They do not understand fear. That is their weakness." Ambassador Deche was aboard the Indomitable as an observer. She stood beside Commander Chen, watching the preparations. "Have you fought battles this large before?" she asked. Chen shook his head. "Never. We only had maybe 100 ships at most. But the tactics are the same. Hit and run. Never stay in one place. Never let them adapt to your weapons. They adapt." Deche asked nervously. "Everything adapts," Chen replied. "Even machines. Especially these machines." The architects arrived exactly when predicted. They did not come from jump space. They came from beneath reality itself. Space simply tore open, and they emerged. 37 vessels, each one a geometric nightmare. Perfect shapes that hurt to look at. Pyramids, spheres, impossible polygons. They moved without engines, existing in space like mistakes in the universe. Alina felt her stomach turn. She had seen architects before, had fought them for decades, but seeing so many at once still terrified her. "All ships, weapons free," she commanded. "Remember the briefing. Resonance weapons only. Everything else is wasted ammunition." The fleet opened fire. Human ships led the attack, their resonance cannons blazing white light. The beams hit the architect vessels, and space rippled. Some of the enemy ships flickered. Good. That meant damage. But the architects fired back. Their weapons were not beams or missiles. They were corruption waves, invisible pulses that washed over the Allied fleet. The Sin ships began to report computer failures. Krovar vessels found their weapon systems turning on each other. "Activate hardened protocols," Alina shouted. "Disconnect all networked systems. Go manual." The human ships had practiced this for years. Their crews worked in perfect synchronization, isolating computer systems, switching to analog controls. But the other species were not ready. They lost 17 ships in the first minute. Ships that killed themselves, corrupted from within. Commander Zek watched 3 of his best warships tear themselves apart. His mandibles clicked in rage. "This is wrong. This is not war. This is murder. This is what they do." Chen replied over the channel. "Fight through it. Keep firing." The battle became chaos. Ships weaved and dodged. The architects moved through space like ghosts, phasing through solid matter. A Krovar Dreadnought fired its main cannon directly at an architect pyramid. The beam passed through as if the enemy was not there. Then the pyramid became solid again, appearing inside the Dreadnought. The ship exploded from within, but humanity had learned to fight this enemy. Human destroyers worked in pairs, firing their resonance weapons from multiple angles. When an architect's ship tried to phase, it found itself caught between 2 reality-breaking beams. The geometric vessel shattered like glass. "That is 1 down," Sarah Kim reported. "But we lost 4 ships doing it." The math was terrible. 4 ships for every architect destroyed. At this rate, they would run out of ships before the enemy ran out of vessels. Alina made a decision. A terrible decision, but the only one that made sense. "All human vessels," she said quietly. "Initiate protocol, Omega." Khan looked at her in horror. Elena? No. That is suicide. That is victory, Elena replied. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Or the closest we can get. Send the order. Across the fleet, human ships received the command. Protocol Omega. Use the resonance drive as a weapon. Ram the enemy. Die, destroying them. The first ship to volunteer was the destroyer Defiant. Captain James Park, 53 years old, with 2 children serving aboard the Indomitable. He aimed his ship at the nearest architect sphere and poured all power into his engines. For Earth, he shouted. For humanity. The Defiant struck the sphere at full speed. Then its resonance drive detonated. The explosion was not fire or energy. It was a tear in reality itself. The sphere and everything within 5 kilometers simply ceased to exist, including the Defiant and its crew of 200. Ambassador Desher felt their deaths through her telepathic senses. 200 minds going silent at once. She fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the sacrifice. How can you ask them to do this? She whispered. Do not ask, Elena said, tears streaming down her face. They volunteer, because that is what humans do. We die so others can live. 6 more human ships made the same choice. 6 more suicide runs. 6 more architect vessels destroyed. The enemy fleet was down to 29 ships, but humanity had lost almost all their destroyers. The remaining fleet fought desperately. Velcron warriors, inspired by human courage, threw themselves at the enemy with new determination. Krovar dreadnoughts used themselves as shields for smaller vessels. The Shin carriers coordinated attacks with their telepathy, working around the corruption waves. But they were losing. Slowly, surely, the architects could not be stopped. Then Elena saw it. The pattern she had been looking for. One architect vessel stayed back from the fighting. It was larger than the others. A massive dodecahedron that pulsed with dark energy. Every other architect's ship oriented itself around it. That is the command node, Elena said. Commander Chen, plot a course. Straight line. Full speed. Chen understood immediately. The Indomitable cannot survive a direct assault on that thing. I know, Elena said. She opened the ship-wide channel. All hands. This is the captain. We are going to end this, but it is going to cost us everything. Anyone who wants to evacuate, you have 5 minutes. No shame, no judgment. You have all done enough. There was a pause. Then her crew responded, not with words, but with actions. Every station reported ready. Every section confirmed full power. Not one person evacuated. Commander Chen smiled. Looks like we are all insane, Captain. Looks like Elena agreed. She gripped her command chair. All non-human vessels create a corridor. We are going through. Chancellor Freaks understood what the humans were planning. It was madness. Beautiful, terrible madness. All Krovar ships form up on the Indomitable. We will clear their path. Commander Zek felt something stirring in his chest. Humans called it honor. Velcron hegemony. With me, we fight for our human allies. The fleet formed a corridor of metal and fire. They threw themselves at the architect vessels, absorbing corruption waves, sacrificing themselves to keep the path clear. The Indomitable accelerated. 40 kilometers of human determination, aimed at the heart of the enemy. The great ship shook as architect weapons tore into it. Decks vented to space. Crew members died at their stations. But the Indomitable did not stop. It could not stop. Elena watched her ship die around her, but she kept her hands steady on the controls. Just a little farther. Just a little more. The command node tried to phase, tried to escape, but the Indomitable was too close, too fast. The human dreadnought crashed into the geometric vessel like a hammer of defiance. Now, Elena shouted. Full cascade. The resonance drive went critical. Not an explosion, but a wave. a pulse of reality-breaking energy that spread from the collision point through every architect vessel. Their perfect geometry shattered. Their phase drives failed. One by one, 30 architect ships went dark and drifted in space. Dead. Finally dead. The Indomitable's bridge went dark. Emergency power flickered. Elena tried to stand, but could not. Something was broken inside her. She could taste blood. Status. She whispered. "We won," Commander Chen replied. He was badly hurt too. Most of the bridge crew was dead or dying. "We actually won, Keen." The Allied fleet floated in the debris field. Thousands of ships destroyed. Hundreds of thousands dead, but alive. They were alive, and the architects were not. The Indomitable drifted in space like a dying whale. Half its hull was torn open. Fires burned in sections that still had atmosphere. Of the 200,000 crew who had started the battle, only 120,000 remained alive. The great human dreadnought that had arrived with such power was now a broken shell. But it had done its job. Around it, 37 architect vessels floated dead in space. Their perfect geometry shattered. Their corruption waves silent. The enemy had retreated. Not defeated forever, but beaten. For now, rescue ships moved through the debris field. Crovar vessels pulled survivors from destroyed ships. Dacian medical frigates treated the wounded. Velcrin salvage teams searched for anyone still alive in the wreckage. Species that had been strangers now worked together to save each other on the bridge of the Indomitable. Captain Elena Voss lay on a stretcher. Her body was broken. 3 ribs cracked. Internal bleeding. Burns across her left side. But she was alive. Commander Chen sat beside her, his arm in a makeshift sling. "How many did we lose?" Elena asked. Her voice was weak. "Too many," Chen replied. "The final count is still coming in, but it looks like we lost about 40% of the Allied fleet. The human destroyers are gone. All of them. They gave everything." Elena closed her eyes. 40%. Thousands of ships. Millions of people. The price of victory was always too high. Ambassador Datia entered the ruined bridge carefully. She had to climb over debris and bodies to reach them. When she saw Elena, she felt tears on her face again. "You saved us," Dacia whispered. "You saved everyone." "We all saved each other," Elena replied. "That was the point. No one species could have won this alone." Chancellor Rikis appeared on a communication screen. His own ship had taken heavy damage. One of his arms was missing, but Crovar could regrow limbs. He would survive. "It's Captain Voss," he said. His voice carried weight now. "Respect. The Council has voted unanimously. Earth is no longer quarantined. Humanity is welcomed as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges." Elena laughed, then coughed blood. "It only took the end of the universe for you to accept us." Rikas's scales shifted color. Shame in Crovar body language. "Yes, we were wrong. About everything. We judged you for violence while you were simply trying to survive. We abandoned you when we should have helped. That error nearly destroyed us all. What happens now?" Chen asked. Commander's X image appeared beside Rikis. The Velcrin commander looked exhausted. "Now we rebuild. Together, we combine our knowledge. Human weapons. Crovar industry. Dessing coordination. Velcrin warriors. We prepare for when they come back." "When?" Dacia asked. "Not if." Elena shook her head slowly. "They are not gone. We hurt them badly. But the architects do not give up. They have been dormant for millions of years. They can wait centuries for their next attack. Maybe longer. But they will come back. They always come back." The room fell silent. The weight of that truth pressed down on everyone. "Then we will be ready," Rikis said firmly. "We have time now. Time you bought us with your sacrifice. We will use it wisely. Lena felt consciousness slipping away. The pain medications were finally kicking in. Commander Chen is in charge of the Indomitable now. I am going to sleep. Wake me when the next war starts. Keisha touched Elena's hand gently. Through the contact, she sent waves of healing, telepathic energy. It was all she could do. Rest, brave human. You have earned it. 3 months later, Elena Voss stood in the council chamber. Her body had healed, though scars remained. She would always walk with a slight limp now, but she was alive, and she represented Earth in the highest halls of galactic power. The chamber looked different now. 30 species stood together, but there was a new symbol on the wall. The blue and green planet. Earth, equal among equals. High Chancellor Vrikis spoke to the assembled delegates. We gather today to discuss the future. The architects are out there, waiting, watching, but we are no longer unprepared. Construction has begun on a new fleet. Ships that combine the best technology from all our species. Images appeared in the hologram. Beautiful vessels that blended human, Krovar, Deshan, and Valkyrian design. Ships built to fight impossible enemies and win. The flagship will be completed in 2 years, Rikis continued. We have chosen a name for it, a name that represents what we have become. We will call it the Unity. Elena felt pride swell in her chest. Unity, after so much division, so much death. They had finally learned. But there is another matter, Commander Zek said. He gestured to a second hologram. It showed the Indomitable. The great ship was in dock, surrounded by construction platforms. The human dreadnought that saved us all. It is being rebuilt. Not just repaired, but improved, enhanced. It will serve as both a monument and a weapon. A reminder of what we achieved together. Ambassador Desha stood. And there is more. We are establishing a new force. A combined military unit that will patrol the border of known space, watching for any sign of architect activity. This unit will be called the Vanguard, and we would like to offer Captain Elena Voss command of the entire operation. Lena stared at them in surprise. Me. There are commanders with more experience, more ships, more resources, but none with more knowledge, Vriki said. None who have fought the architects as long as humanity has. None who can teach us how to survive what is coming. You do not just command ships, Captain. You command respect. That is worth more than any weapon. Lena looked around the chamber, at the species who had once abandoned her people, who had left them to die, but who now stood ready to fight beside them. She thought of all the humans who had sacrificed everything. Captain Park and the crew of the Defiant. The thousands who had died in suicide runs. The billions who perished during Earth's isolation. I accept, Elena said, but on one condition. The Vanguard must include volunteers from all species, not just warriors, scientists, engineers, teachers. We need to learn from each other. Really learn. Because knowledge is the only weapon that never runs out of ammunition. The council agreed. Over the next year, the Vanguard took shape. Space stations were built along the galactic rim. Detection networks spread across dark space, and ships from every species trained together, learning human tactics, sharing alien technology. On Earth, children played in parks that had been battlefields. Cities rebuilt from ruins. Humanity began to heal, but they never forgot. In every school, students learned about the architects, about the price of isolation, about the value of unity. The Indomitable was finally relaunched on the 2nd anniversary of the battle. Elena stood on its rebuilt bridge with Commander Chen and a crew that included Krovar engineers, Deshan navigators, and Valkyrian tactical officers. A truly mixed crew. A truly united ship. Captain, the helm officer reported. He was a young Valkyrian who had lost his hive in the battle. Course laid in for the outer rim. All systems ready. Lena sat in her command chair. It felt right to be here. This was home now. Not Earth, Not any planet, but this ship's crew, this mission. Take us out, she ordered. Nice and steady. We have a galaxy to protect. The Indomitable moved away from dock and headed for deep space. Behind it, the Unity was taking shape, growing larger every day. Around it, hundreds of mixed-species ships trained and prepared. The Vanguard, the first line of defense against impossible threats. But Elena's eyes were on the view screen, on the dark space beyond the galaxy. Somewhere out there, the architects waited, dormant, patient, building their strength. Ambassador Datia had asked her once if they had really won. Elena had not answered then. But now, watching her mixed crew work together in perfect harmony, she thought maybe they had. Not a victory over the architects. That fight would continue for generations, maybe forever. But a victory over fear, over division, over the isolation that had nearly destroyed them all. Deep in dark space, beyond the reach of any telescope or sensor, something stirred. A geometric pattern pulsed once in the darkness. The architects had not forgotten, had not forgiven. They were merely waiting, calculating, planning. But they did not understand what had changed. They saw only organic errors to be corrected. They did not see the bonds that had formed, the unity that had been forged in fire. They did not understand that humanity had taught the galaxy something precious. How to stand together against the dark. How to fight as one. How to refuse to surrender, even when all hopes seemed lost. The architects would come again. Everyone knew this. But when they did, they would face something they had never encountered before. Not divided species, fighting alone, but a united galaxy standing firm. And at the front of that galaxy, a battered but unbroken Dreadnought. The Indomitable. The ship that had arrived and made the universe pause. The ship that had changed everything. Elena Voss sat in her command chair and smiled. Let the architects come. Let them bring their perfect geometry and their corruption waves. Humanity has spent 50 years learning how to break impossible things, and now they had taught everyone else. The universe held its breath and waited, not in fear anymore, but in anticipation, because the next time the architects came, they would find a galaxy ready to fight back, together, united, unafraid, and they would learn what the architects had never understood, that the greatest weapon in the universe was not technology. It was not perfect geometry or reality-breaking beams. It was the stubborn, impossible, beautiful refusal of organic life to give up, to die quietly, to accept correction. It was the human spirit, and it had infected an entire galaxy. The war was not over. It was just beginning. But for the first time in millions of years, the architects faced opponents who might actually win. Deep in space, the Indomitable sailed on, and the universe watched with anticipation to see what these united species would do next.